So can I tell you guys, I took the weekend off. I did. I took the weekend off. I even included Friday in it. I didn't make any new content. I wasn't really watching the news. I was more so just sitting on my couch and knitting because I'm going to be honest, I've been getting really depressed lately. It's been rough. And the reason that I think I'm getting depressed is that I feel overwhelmed with the amount of work there is to do and the amount of things there are to push back on. And to be really blunt, I feel like half the time I'm fighting with the people on the right who are supposed to be the side that I agree with, and they're extending more energy fighting me than they are against actually fighting back against people on the left and the woke nonsense that their energy should actually be focused on. And listen, it's not so much for me about, getting grief from people online. I can take grief from people online, but when I see a group of people who actually have a common enemy and they are more interested in complaining and whining about how Twitter is mean to them and censors conservatives, if that's where your energy is going to, I started to not see the point. I was like, okay, well, if this group doesn't actually want to do the work and fight back, then what do my efforts mean in any of this? And that's really what I had been thinking about for most of the weekend as I sat on my couch downstairs and knitted and contemplated if doing anything in this area was even possible given where we are today. But I'm not a quitter. I'm going to go down with the ship, man. If the ship goes down, and frankly, every day I'm blackpilling a little bit more, thinking the ship is probably going to go down because people's energy is focused in completely the wrong direction, and I can't control everyone. I can only control myself. Oh God, if I could control everyone, what a different reality that we would be in right now. But I can only control myself, and I can only control what I'm contributing to the situation. So until I end up in the gulag, I guess here I am, doing what I can, well, now mostly ignoring the comments that I get on anything but my locals because everyone else has a really bad attitude and they're only bringing me down. And you want to know why? Before we get into this article about 10 ways to fight back against woke culture, you want to know why I'm particularly hard on people on the right who are bringing nothing but toxicity and negativity and whining and complaining into my comments? You know why I'm so hard on people like that? Because it's the toxic people that bring down the people who are actually trying to do things. The work of one toxic person whining and complaining and saying, woe is us, we are victims of the media and all these things. It only takes one person to bring down the work of two highly motivated people. And so, I am fighting against toxicity on the right now as much as I'm fighting against woke stuff on the left, which is why, of course, I'm sitting in the middle of all of this, and I think that the right is crazy, and I think the left is crazy. Sometimes the right is just a smidge less crazy than the left, but they still have their own brand of craziness that I'm really glad I'm not a part of for the moment. But listen, there are ways that you can fight back, and I saw this article this morning from Barry Weiss in the New York Post, 10 ways to fight back against woke culture. I haven't read this yet, so this is going to be a little bit of a reaction video. What I want to do is look at some of her ideas and talk about what I think about them and if they're actually effective ways to fight back against woke culture. Now, I'll do a little disclaimer in that, generally speaking, I think Barry Weiss's view of this is rather theoretical. I don't think that, we could talk about her writing her resignation letter from the New York Times, and I think that was all fine, well and good. But I think, generally speaking, Barry Weiss keeps herself up here and keeps herself out of the actual grunt work of fighting back against this stuff. And so I think that her ideas and suggestions, generally speaking, are a little theoretical. It's kind of like an academic sitting in the ivory tower and saying, oh, you should do this and that and the other thing, but then they never actually get into the trenches and try to do that. This is something I've constantly had to fight back against in academia because obviously I have a PhD, so I existed in academia while I was doing my PhD, but my focus was always on how do I get out there in the real world and actually do the work. And what I've often found is that there is a giant gap between people who are sitting in their ivory towers, whether that be in academia or the media or wherever. And there's a giant difference between those people who never actually get out there into the trenches and then the people that are actually in it every single day. There is a lot that gets lost in translation between those two things, and that's generally how I perceive Bari Weiss. I think her intentions are probably good. I think that she also, quite frankly, was in a position to fight back a lot more and continues to be in a position to fight back a lot more, and I haven't seen her do it as much as I would like to see her do. Anyway, that aside, we're going to take a look at this article. I'm going to give you a little response to it. We're going to talk about what I think it means and maybe some ways that you can apply these ideas in the real world. But before we get into that, listen, I know I started this video with a little bit of a bad attitude, a little bit of a crappy mood, but, you know, generally speaking, I do cover a lot of the woke nonsense on this channel. I try to do almost daily content, except when I need a little bit of a break around news, politics, culture, that sort of stuff. I'm going to be doing a lot more in terms of the battle against the woke and this crazy progressive far left ideology in the coming months. If you enjoy this type of stuff, you might want to consider subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications, leaving a comment, giving it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Or maybe you just need a good stern talking to sometime when you're in a bad attitude, because Lord knows that I am not opposed to telling off people on my own channel when I think that they have earned a good telling off. All right, let's take a look at this article. I realize the faddish thing to say these days is that we live in the worst, most broken, backwards country in the world and maybe in the history of civilization. It's utter nonsense. I have a few basic litmus tests in my own life. Can I wear a tank top in public? Can I walk down the street holding the hand of my partner, a beautiful woman, in many places in America without getting a second glance? Can I wear a Jewish star without fear? I do not take these things for granted. I know very well that in many other places, the answers would be different and my life wouldn't be possible at all. America is imperfect. Does it even need to be said? There is bigotry towards blacks and gays and Jews and immigrants. There is an intense polarization. Political violence is becoming more regular. Elected representatives believe conspiracy theories. See, and this is why I don't trust Bari Weiss, man. This is exactly why. Right here, Bari Weiss. If you want to know why I don't actually think that you have your boots on the ground and could write about this in a practical sense, because you're more interested in politicians who believe crazy things than you are in the real world. This is why, right here. All true here and in many other countries being torn apart by the dislocations of the 21st century. But there is no gulag in America. Well, unless you believe crazy stuff in your Congress, and then you're going to get put in the gulag with the support of Bari Weiss, but I digress. By the way, guys, like, people are allowed to believe crazy stuff. People believe crazy stuff. The left believes some crazy stuff. The left believes that Russia was responsible for the election of Donald Trump. They talked about it every day on TV for years and years and years. And no one calls them conspiracy theorists because they believe the approved crazy stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene believes the disapproved crazy stuff. And yeah, I do actually think that some of the stuff that she has said is crazy. But does it necessitate the backlash that she's gotten? Probably not. Why are they attacking her? And why is someone like Bari Weiss supporting attacking her? Because she believes the approved crazy thing, or the disapproved rather, crazy things. There are crazy things that you're allowed to believe, and there are crazy things that you are not allowed to believe in this land where we actually have a First Amendment that allows people to say crazy things. That is, you know what? I've been thinking about this lately. I'm gonna offer an unpopular opinion on this. I've been really into Telegram lately, not so much participating in it, and I don't have an active Telegram right now, though I'm sure it's gonna be coming. But I actually have been reading Lin Wood's Telegram. And Lin Wood, for those of you who don't know, like, I think Lin Wood is, I think he's lost it. I do. I think he's absolutely crazy. I do not believe the things he says. I do not believe the evidence he puts out. I don't believe any of that. But the fair point that Lin Wood makes a lot on his Telegram is that he is allowed to say these things. He's allowed to say crazy stuff. The First Amendment protects Lin Wood's right to say crazy stuff. And if you have a strong argument against the crazy stuff that he's saying, then it is incumbent upon you to use persuasion. Wow. Persuasion. There it is. It is incumbent upon you to use persuasion to convince people that his ideas are crazy. This idea that we should shut down speech for people who say things that we don't like or who believe crazy things, that is entirely counter to the flipping First Amendment. I may not like everything Marjorie Taylor Greene says. I certainly don't like things that are said on MSNBC every single day for years, or CNN for that matter. I don't like the stuff that Lin Wood says on Telegram and the crazy stuff that he preaches. But guess what? In this country, we are allowed to believe crazy stuff. And we have to start using persuasion to push back on the crazy stuff, which is exactly what I'm going to be trying to do with the woke nonsense. That's my little diversion. I apologize. We'll get back on track now. But there is no gulag in America. There are no laws permitting honor killings. There are no formal credit systems of the kind that exist right now in China. Well, there's going to be a formal credit system. I think we can all see that that's coming. By any measure, we have achieved incredible progress and enjoy extraordinary freedoms, and yet people aren't acting that way. They are acting increasingly like subjects of a totalitarian country. These people write to me daily. They admit to regularly censoring themselves at work and with friends, succumbing to the social pressures to tweet the right hashtag, to parroting the slogans they do not believe to protect the livelihoods, like their greengrocer in, I don't know how to pronounce that, essay, The Power of the Powerless. These people aren't crazy. They're scared, and for good reason. How much does it cost me to log on to Twitter and accuse you right now of an ism? America is fast developing its own informal credit system. See, told ya. As the writer Rod Dreher has noted, in which people with the wrong politics or online persona are banned from social media sites and online financial networks. When everything is recorded for eternity, when making mistakes and taking risks are transformed into capital offenses, and when things that were common sense until 2 seconds ago become unsayable, people make the understandable decision to simply shut up. And this is exactly the point I was making, man. Listen, in order to protect speech for everyone, you have to protect the rights and the abilities of people to say crazy stuff. Do I think that Lin Wood sounds crazy right now? You're goddamn right I do. Do I think that the Georgia bar should be requiring him to take a mental fitness test for saying crazy things in order to retain his ability to practice law? No. No. The First Amendment protects his right to say crazy things. If you want to disprove Lin Wood in what he's saying, then present facts that dispute what he's saying. And these are coming from lawyers, man. These are the people who should be the first advocates for the First Amendment in this country. If you disagree with someone, you present facts and evidence to disprove what they're saying. And if they're really so wrong, then this should be an easy task to persuade the average person that you are right and they are wrong. Do not nod along when you hear the following. That Abraham Lincoln's name on a public school or his likeness on a statue is white supremacy. It is not. He is a hero. That separating people into racial affinity groups is progressive. It's a form of segregation. That looting has no victims. Untrue. And that small business owners can cope away because they have insurance. Nonsense. That any disparity of outcome is evidence of systemic oppression. False. That America is evil. It is the last hope on earth. The list could go on for 1,000 pages. There may have become conventional wisdom in some circles, but they are lies. Yet, too many good people are sacrificing the common good and therefore their long-term security for the sake of short-term comfort. It's time to stand up and fight back. That means you, social conservatives, never Trump Republicans, and anti-Trump Republicans too, lukewarm liberals and libertarians, progressives that have a little curiosity still left, exhausted parents who want nothing to do with politics, Joe Rogan stands, Reddit revolutionaries, and the hedgies getting crushed, Facebookers and email chainers, and Etsy shop owners, and boomers who still use AOL accounts. Start with the following 10 principles. Okay, so she's now making the argument that everyone has to get involved, that everyone has to fight back. On this, I am in 100% agreement with Barry Weiss. Listen, this is going to, if you have not been affected by the woke culture yet in some way, shape, or form, don't you think that means for 1 second that you're safe? You are not safe. Your family isn't safe. Your friends are not safe. Your children are not safe. This is like a mind virus, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that gets into one person in a population and it multiplies and it grows and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. And certainly not when you're keeping your mouth shut and not fighting back. And this is why I'm so hard on the people on my channel, because it shouldn't just be people like me who are fighting back against this. Everyone needs to fight back against this. I can scream on this channel till kingdom come all day, every day. And it ain't gonna make a damn bit of difference if every single person watching this video is unwilling to fight back in ways that they are capable of in their own lives. Because listen, if I have 20,000 people watching a video and the only person fighting back is me, the person in the video, and the rest of the 20,000 are watching the video and they're saying, oh, yeah, okay, I agree with this, yeah. And then you don't do anything about it. Guess what? I'm still just one person, guys. I'm still just one person. We all have to be brave. We all have to speak up. We all have to be pushing back against this stuff. Otherwise, don't be surprised when they come for you. All right. Let's get into Barry Weiss's top 10 ways that you can fight back. Because this is what you guys always ask me, right? Like, Carlin, what can we do? And I say, well, you don't run away to your safe space on Gab. And you say, no, Carlin, that is too much. We need our safe space on Gab. Well, here are 10 other suggestions for things that you can do so you can stop complaining that I'm not giving you ideas. Number 1, remind yourself right now of the following truth. You are free. It's true that we live in an upside-down time in which pressing the like button on the wrong thing can bring untold consequences, but giving in to those who seek to confine you only hurts you in the long run. Your loss of self is the most significant thing that can be taken away from you. Don't give it up for anything. She's glossing over this, like she thinks this is an easy thing. And maybe it is easy for her. Maybe in the ivory tower of like whatever media thing that she's doing now, maybe it is easy for her. I mean, she certainly found her sense of self when she resigned from the New York Times. But I also think that this is actually the most difficult step for the average person, and it's been made only more difficult by an entire year of forcing people to wear masks, which very literally takes away their identity. When you cover up a person's face, you are taking away their identity. When you cover up a person's face, you are taking away their ability to express themselves, which is why I have argued and continue to argue so strongly against masks in the first place. You have to know who you are, and you have to know what you stand for, and you have to have a line of things that you are willing to tolerate and not willing to tolerate. Number 2, be honest. Do not say anything about yourself or others that you know is false. Absolutely refuse to let your mind be colonized. The first crazy thing someone asks you to believe or profess, refuse. If you can do it, do so out loud. There is a good chance it will inspire others to speak up too. Well, she's really simplifying this one too, because the problem with the woke is that they believe that they are honest. This is what people don't understand. They don't think they're lying. They don't think they're lying. In their heads, they've convinced themselves that they are telling the complete and total truth. So should you be honest? Yeah, you should be, but you also have to constantly be checking yourself and questioning yourself, because that's what the woke don't do. The woke believe they're being honest. They just don't check themselves. They don't keep themselves honest. They give into their own confirmation bias. They never look at information that is counter to what they believe. You should be reading information from a variety of sources. I read lefty info all the time to make sure I'm keeping myself honest. And it's also, by the way, how I've discovered that we don't actually have that much. We don't hate the left as much as we think we do when it comes to average everyday people. That's another topic for another day, but no one's going to keep you honest. If you want to live in an echo chamber, this is why I'm so afraid. This is why I am so afraid of people saying that people on the right need their own space, people on the left need their own space. We just need to amicably divorce. Because the minute you do that, you're creating an echo chamber for yourself that is no better than what the left has done. Absolutely no better. It's going to convince you that things are true that are not true. You have to keep yourself honest. No one's going to do it for you. Number 3, stick to your principles. If you are a decent person, you know mob justice is never just. So never join a mob, ever. Even if you agree with a mob, if you are a decent person, you know betraying friends is wrong. So if your friend or colleague does something you disagree with, write them a private note. Don't be a snitch. Any mob that comes for them will come for you. I absolutely agree with her on this one, and I think that I like that she pointed out too that even if you agree with the mob, you have to understand that mob justice fundamentally by itself is unjust. And if they're going to come for one person, it doesn't matter whether or not that's true. They're going to come for you as well. 4, set an example for your kids and your community. That means being courageous. I understand that it's hard, really hard, but in other times and places, including in our own nation, people have made far greater sacrifices. Think of those honored dead who gave the last full measure of devotion. If enough people make the leap, we will achieve something like herd immunity. Jump. She's 100% correct on that one. And this is why I've taken a rash of heat from all of you when I say that staying on Twitter is the bare minimum that any of you can do. Now, I'm not talking about people that have never had Twitter accounts. I'm not talking about people who've gotten banned from Twitter. What I'm talking about, and Twitter, by the way, is like the smallest, stupidest thing in the known universe. But what I am talking about are people who are voluntarily leaving the battlefield to go to Gab or any other site because Twitter was mean to me. They're mean to us, Colin. Don't you understand they don't want us there? Don't you understand we're taking advertising revenue away when we leave? You know what? Twitter is the reason I harp on Twitter so much. It is like the bare minimum that you can do, dude. Can you think of a lower barrier to entry than staying on Twitter and saying things that fight back against the woke? I can't what is a lower barrier of entry for that? If you are unwilling to do that, where you can be completely anonymous, by the way. If you are unwilling to do that, then do I expect you to speak up at your kid's school? No. Do I expect you to run for school board? No. Do I expect you to go to your local town council meeting and speak up? No. Do I expect you to speak up in your church group? No. If you can't do the little things, you can't do the big things. Set an example. Practice. Set up an anonymous account. I don't really care if you show your real identity or not. But the fact that so many people are saying, no, it is too much. And you are a horrible person for asking us to do it. If you don't believe that, go check the comments on the last video, because I got a rash of them for that. If you can't do the little things, you can't do the big things. And yeah, I think it's a cowardly act to run off into your little safe space and pretend you're not exactly like the left. If you don't like it, leave it. Oh, good. Thank you, Barry Weiss, for completely undercutting the point I just made. But let's see what she's getting into here. A class in college, a job, anything. Get out and do your own thing. I fully understand the impulse to want to change things from within, and by all means, try as hard as you can. But if the leopard is currently eating the face of a person in the cubicle next to you, I promise it's not going to refrain from eating yours if you post the black square on your Instagram. So she's talking about, let's be clear, folks, she's talking about a job, something in school, something that's happening in your real life where you cannot be anonymous. So we're going to get that out of the way before any of you come back and say, Carla, she told us to leave Twitter like crying little babies. That's what she told us to do. You're being mean to us by telling us to say, no. That's not what she's saying. And I agree with her on this. Listen, man, I don't think that you should up and quit your job out of nowhere if your company goes woke. I think you need to start a plan. This is why I've been harping on you guys. You have to make sure you know what companies are going woke. You have to keep your resume updated. You have to constantly be putting feelers out there. It's not the easiest environment to get a job in, but it is a lot easier than it once was, given that so many places have virtual working options. So you have to be responsible for this. You have to set up your own opportunities. Get your resume updated. Start looking on Indeed.com. Start sending feelers out there for other places if you have the least inkling that your company is going woke. Become more self-reliant. If you can learn to use a power drill, do it. If you've always wanted to make an outdoor solar hot tub, make one. Learn to poach an egg or shoot a gun. Most importantly, get it in your head that platforms are not neutral. If you don't believe me, look at Parler, look at Robinhood. To the extent that you can, build your life to be self-reliant and not 100% reliant on the web. It's a good thing. It will make you feel competent and powerful, which you are. I would probably change that one to find your purpose. Find something that you can run towards in your life that's going to give you personal fulfillment. Not that I think that being reliant is necessarily a bad thing, but I also think that it is a much better strategy to actually find a fulfilling purpose in your life. That's going to make you believe that you can do anything, not necessarily using a power drill, man. Find a purpose. Find something that gives you energy, that makes you feel good, that makes you think like you're contributing. That's a better way to go about it. Worship God more than Yale. In other words, do not lose sight of what is essential. Professional prestige is not essential. Being popular is not essential. Getting your kid into an elite preschool is not essential. Doing the right thing is essential. Telling the truth is essential. Protecting your kids is essential. I agree with that. I think that, not that I think that everyone needs to practice religion, because I don't. I think that there are, I understand why atheists are atheists, right? I don't understand why they're angry a lot of times, but I understand why atheists are atheists. I don't practice a formal religion. I do believe in God, and I practice in my own way. But I absolutely do believe that this focus on what is prestigious has gotten way out of hand, especially when, I'm sorry, like, education is what you make of it. These things are what you make of it. There is no value in Harvard any more than there is in a community college if people are showing up to Harvard and not actually doing the work and not learning and are just passing because their teachers, there's a joke my cousin once told me, because she actually got into Harvard. She got into a bunch of the Ivy League. She ended up going to Cornell. But what she told me, she said, I wish I had gone to Harvard because they don't let people fail at Harvard ever. So she thought it was actually much harder for her at Cornell than it would have been at Harvard. We can get into the nuances of that aside, of my cousin getting into all these Ivy League schools, whatever. But what I'm saying is that these things have the value that you give them. And the value of your degree is dependent on how you use it, what you do with it. And, I think it drives me nuts that people worship these schools as though there's something that they're not. I've worked at Harvard. I've done consulting for half the damn Ivy League. Trust me when I tell you, those places are effed up. Make like-minded friends, then stand up for them. 2 tests. Are you willing to tell the truth even if it hurts your own side? Do you think that humor should never be used casually, no matter how bleak the circumstances? These people are increasingly rare. When you find them, hold on tight. I do absolutely believe, I agree with her on that one, that friends absolutely can help. Trust your own eyes and ears. Rely on first-hand information from people you trust rather than on media spin. When you hear someone make generalizations about a group of people, imagine they are talking about you and react accordingly. If people insist on spouting back headlines and talking points, make them prove it in their own words. Yes, 100%. Do not believe the media. Go to first-hand sources and see for yourself. Sometimes they tell the truth. A lot of times they don't. A lot of times it's just spin. Almost everything is documented on video now. Almost everything. Not 100% everything, but a lot. You can get a lot from first-hand sources and then make up your own mind about what it means. And lastly, and yes, I know this video's run way longer than I thought it would due to my rants, use your capital to build original, interesting, and generative things right now, this minute. Every day I hear from those with means, with children at private schools who are being brainwashed. People who run companies where they are scared of their own employees. People who donate to their alma mater even though it betrays their principles. Enough. You have the ability to build new things. If you don't have that financial capital, you have the social and political capital or the ability to sweat. The work of our lifetimes is the great build. Let's go. I mean, I think that that's a big step for a lot of people. Not that I necessarily disagree with it, but that's a big leap, man. That's not step one. Step one is that you've got to be brave. That you have to find your voice. That you have to be willing to do the small things. Again, this is one of the things she doesn't talk about and is why I harp on the Twitter example. You guys have got to be willing to do the small things before you can do the big things. If you see that the small things are okay, that you're safe, then you can go one step further. Then you can go one step further after that. Then one step after that. Then one step after that. Use it as an iterative process. Don't jump into the deep end of the swimming pool because you haven't yet learned to swim. Do the small things first. Fight back on these battlefields where you can remain anonymous. Learn how to do it. Learn the language that they're using. And actually take it upon yourself to be a person that's speaking truth and pushing back. If you can't do that, a lot of this stuff is frankly going to be really, really difficult. So You can keep whining and complaining that I told you to be on the evil Twitter all you want, but guess what, guys? That's where the battle is. That's where the playing field is. And if you're in the battle, that's where you need to be. If you haven't gotten banned, maybe you're never on in the first place, I can understand those. But that's where you need to be if you have any interest in this, because that is the platform that they care about. You opt out, you're no use in this fight, and I don't think you would use any of these other 10 things if you aren't willing to do the bare minimum to get by. All right, guys, that's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.